The Curse of the Old Graveyard. On a dark, foggy-ass night, deep in a creepy forest, there was this old, abandoned graveyard that nobody dared set foot in. The ancient trees, all twisted and gnarly, stood like silent guards, and the cold wind carried weird whispers through the air. Thick fog blanketed the place, making the cracked, weathered tombstones look like they were floating in some eerie haze. The moon's dim light cast long, spooky shadows across the ground. Into this mess walks Jack, a 23-year-old dude, shaken in his boots but trying to act tough. He's here 'cause of a dumb bet he made at a bar with his buddies after knocking back way too many drinks. His friends bailed 'cause they'd heard the wild rumors about this creepy graveyard down by the edge of town, right next to the forest. Word on the street was the place was cursed, and evil spirits grabbed anyone dumb enough to wander in. Jack, half drunk and feeling cocky, figured he'd show his friends up by cracking open an old grave. Every step he took, the crunch of dead leaves under his feet made his heart race. He had a flashlight, but its weak beam only lit up the tombstones, throwing freaky shadows on the busted-up crypt walls. He was looking for a grave folks said belonged to some old witch, supposedly cursed as hell. Finally, in a lonely corner of the graveyard, he spotted a tombstone covered in moss and wild vines. It was broken, old as dirt, with no name or date carved on it. Jack, half scared, half curious, went up and pushed the stone aside with shaken hands. Under it was a rotten wooden hatch, which he pried open with some effort. Inside the grave, instead of bones, he found an old book with a black leather cover. It looked ancient, pages all yellow and fallen apart. Jack, kinda stoked, picked it up and brushed off the dust. The cover had weird symbols carved into it, nothing like any language he knew. This thing looked like it was 1,000 years old, and nobody ever talked about it. Maybe because it was too damn dangerous. Without thinking twice, Jack flipped it open and started skimming the pages. The words and sentences made no sense, written in some unknown language. But something weird pushed him to read them out loud. With a shaky voice, he muttered the first line, "Azak Tolam Shadarak." Right then, a cold wind kicked up, and the fog got thicker. The whispers got louder, and Jack felt something watching him from the dark. His heart was pounding, and fear hit him like a truck. He tried to slam the book shut and bolt, but his legs wouldn't move. Out of the fog, a huge black shadow with glowing red eyes came at him. Jack, scared, dropped the book and stumbled back. The shadow rushed him, and it felt like the whole graveyard shook. He ran like hell, dodging tombstones and trees, trying to find the way out. The fog and darkness made it impossible to see, and the sound of heavy footsteps and deep breaths followed him, getting closer every second. After what felt like forever, Jack finally stumbled out of the graveyard and hauled ass back to town. Breathing hard and heart racing, he got to his place and locked the door tight. But he still didn't feel safe, like something was still chasing him. That night, Jack couldn't sleep a wink. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that shadow and its freaky red eyes. He heard weird noises in his house, soft footsteps, and creepy whispers. Freaked out, he flipped on the light, but nobody was there. He looked in the mirror and nearly shit himself when he saw his eyes were red and his face looked pale and wrong. Jack figured out that by opening that book, he'd let loose some evil-ass force that had been hiding from the world. But now, it was fucking up his life. He went to his buddies and told them everything, but they laughed it off, thinking he was still drunk or losing it, using the graveyard rumors as an excuse. Days went by, and things got worse. Jack started seeing crazy hallucinations. Shadowy figures lurking in the corners of his house, and creepy voices whispering his name. His dreams were full of nightmares, where weird creatures chased him, dragging him to dark, scary places. Sometimes he'd see himself back in the graveyard, with cold, bony hands pulling him under the dirt. Every night, he heard scratching and scraping on the walls, getting louder. He felt like invisible things were watching him, waiting to take him over completely. The spirits, or whatever the hell they were, that came out of that book were controlling him now, pumping fear and dread into his life. Jack couldn't take it anymore and decided to find a way out. He went to a local priest named Father John, spilling the whole story. Father John, who'd spent years studying supernatural stuff, got real serious when he heard Jack's tale. He told him that book was a 1,000-year-old evil thing that nobody ever talked about because it was too damn dangerous. Father John said the book was a gateway to a world of evil spirits and demons, and by reading its words, Jack had accidentally called up some dark-ass creature. This thing was working for a female demon named Queen of Shadows, who used spirits to control people and drag them to their doom. Jack, scared out of his mind, asked Father John what to do. The priest said to break the curse, he'd have to take the book back to the graveyard and do a cleansing ritual. But he warned it was risky as hell and could cost Jack his life. Jack, with no other choice, agreed. One dark night, he and Father John went back to the graveyard. The fog was thick again, and a cold wind was blowing. They found the old grave and put the book back where it belonged. Father John started chanting holy prayers, trying to break the curse. But then, the ground shook, and a loud roar came from deep in the graveyard. Black shadows popped up from the graves and came at him. The spirits, pissed off that they were trying to destroy the book, attacked with freaky screams that sounded like they came straight from hell. The wind turned into a storm, like it was trying to sweep them away. Jack and the priest barely made it out of the graveyard, but the book was still there. Father John said the curse wasn't broken, and they'd need another plan. Jack went back home, hopeless and scared, but the spirits didn't let up. They kept haunting him, turning his life into a living nightmare. He couldn't handle the whispers and scary visions popping into his head all the time. Sometimes it felt like his body wasn't his anymore, like the spirits were making him do things he didn't want. He hit up an old library and started digging into books about demons and spirits. After hours of searching, he found an ancient book that talked about the Queen of Shadows. She was a powerful, tricky demon who used that evil book to trap people and steal their souls. The book said the only way to beat her was to face her head-on in her world. Jack knew he had to confront the Queen of Shadows to break the curse. He went back to Father John and begged for help. The priest, though hesitant, agreed and set up a ritual to open a portal to the spirit world. On a night with a full moon, Jack and Father John gathered in the old town church. Father John used prayers and holy symbols to open a portal. Jack, scared but determined, stepped through and found himself in the spirit world. It was a dark, fucked up place. The sky was red with black clouds, the ground covered in rotten bones, and rivers of blood flowed around. Wails and screams echoed in the distance, and the air stank of sulfur and decay. Jack, shaken but pushing forward, went looking for the Queen of Shadows. Suddenly, a beautiful but creepy woman with glowing red eyes appeared. It was her. The Queen, with a voice that was sweet but terrifying, said, "Who the hell are you to step into Uxie's, Jack?" Voice shaken answered, "I'm Jack. I'm here to break your curse and get my life back." She laughed and said, "You can't beat me, human. Your soul's mine forever." But Jack, thinking of all the shit he'd been through, wasn't given up. He fought the Queen of Shadows. She threw dark powers at him, sending shadowy creatures with sharp claws and awful screams his way. Jack kept going, fueled by the courage burning inside him. At one point, he thought he was done for. His body was banged up and his mind was slipping. But he heard Father John's prayers in his head, giving him strength. With one last push, he lunged at the Queen, grabbed the evil book from her hands, and tore it to pieces, slamming it to the ground. A blinding white light shot out of the book, and the Queen let out a bone-chilling scream before vanishing into the darkness. The curse was broken, and Jack made it back to the real world. Jack came back to the real world and felt the curse was gone. The spirits stopped hounding him, and the nightmares were history. He went home, and for the first time in ages, slept like a baby. But that whole ordeal changed him for good. He realized he shouldn't be throwing his life away on stupid bets or getting wasted. His life was worth something, and he had to take care of it. Real courage wasn't about showing off to his buddies. It was about facing your fears and coming out on top. Jack decided to share his story with the world. He became a writer, publishing scary stories to warn folks about messing with creepy places and dark forces. His life went back to normal, but he knew the secrets of that old graveyard were still out there, waiting for the next dumbass to stumble in. To be continued. Don't let dumb curiosity or bad decisions drag you into trouble. Your life's worth protecting. Scary stuff can teach you big lessons and push you toward a better, smarter life. Real courage is knowing you're scared, but fighting anyway.